Italian Football Podcast.
Hello everybody and welcome to another episode of the Italian Football Podcast. I'm Carlo Garganese, joined as always by Nima Tavali. On today's show, we will react to the Easter weekend's Serie A action. Happy Easter to everybody who celebrates it. The Scudetto race is now neck and neck after a dramatic weekend. Scott McTominay saved a sluggish Napoli with a late winner against Monza. And then 24 hours later, Riccardo Orsolini's stunning scissor kick with virtually the last kick of the game gave Bologna a 1-0 win over Inter, which means that Inter and Napoli are now level at the top of Serie A with 5 games to go. Atalanta are close to tying up fourth place or a top 4 place with a crucial win at Milan, who now look likely to not qualify for Europe altogether via Serie A. Only the Coppa Italia can save them. Eldor Shomurodov is Roma's surprise hero once again against Hellas Verona. The Monday fixtures, though, which we're recording this, we were planning to record before. Those games are now, as we're recording, looks like they're not going to go ahead following the death of the Pope. So those games will have to be rescheduled. We will also preview the second legs of the Coppa Italia semi-final, assuming that they go ahead. In particular, the Milan Derby, which is scheduled for Wednesday. And we'll also discuss a couple of important transfer stories with Juventus going all in for Sandro Tonali. Could that transfer really happen? And also Carlo Ancelotti is going to definitely leave Real Madrid. Could he return to either Milan or Roma, his former clubs, in the summer? We'll also have our usual Baggio, Premface and Serie ASS of the week, and you'll want to stick around for that if you want to get very angry about Italian food. So stay for that. A quick heads up, though, for all the Serie A fans in the UK and Ireland. You can stream every single match live on OneFootball, no matter which team you are backing. OneFootball's got you covered. You can watch on via the OneFootball app on your phone or connected TVs from Apple TV, Google TV, Samsung, LG and Fire TV, or on the website tv.onefootball. And what's even better is that you can choose how will you watch it. You can grab a team or season pass to watch all the matches until the end of the season, or just the ones from your favourite club. There's also a match day pass for £9.99 to watch all the weekend's games, or a single match on pay-per-view for £4.99. And if you miss the live game, you'll still get access to all the match highlights too. So if Serie A is your thing, OneFootball is where it's at. We have a link in the description of the episode for you to buy your preferred stream. For all our first-time listeners, this is our free weekly episode that we do every Monday, reviewing all the weekend Serie A action and all the biggest talking points in Italian football. If you want to support the Italian Football Podcast and receive all of our content that we do throughout the week without any ads, including a weekly Q&A episode every Tuesday where we answer all of the questions from our patrons, plus the weekly Thursday midweek review show, plus interviews, post-match reaction and much, much more, then go to patreon.com/TIFP and become a subscriber for just $3.99 a month plus VAT. You can also sign up to be a paid subscriber on Spotify for the same price. The link is in the description. You can also watch us on YouTube, and you can also become a patron on YouTube via YouTube memberships. Go to our YouTube channel on youtube.com/@ItaFootPod for more details. And for all of you who listen on Spotify, Apple and iTunes podcasts, we'd really appreciate if you give us a 5-star rating, give us a follow and a like. Please do the same on YouTube. If you are watching us there, please do subscribe on YouTube. Like our content when you watch it, as all of that really does help us grow and do more quality content for you guys. Okay, so let's get into today's show. So, one place to start. Bologna versus...
Before we do, the Lega Serie A has now confirmed that following the passing of His Holiness, Lega Nazionale Professionisti Serie A can confirm that today's league games in the Serie A and Primavera Prima Categoria have been postponed. The date of the rearranged fixtures will be announced in due course. No news as of yet whether or not the Milan Derby on Wednesday, return leg Coppa Italia semi-final, will be affected by this as well. But we do know that today's matches that was scheduled to be played have now officially been postponed, which was completely expected because back in 2004, I think it was 2005, last time when John Paul II died, they cancelled in 2005. They cancelled them for a week in advance. So I expect that I personally expect the Milan Derby to be postponed as well as a result of this. But these games today officially now postponed.
Yeah, absolutely. Officially postponed as expected. But let's talk about the games that have been played. And Bologna versus Inter. Bologna win 1-0 with an incredible goal from Orsolini with almost the last kick of the game. But we'll come to that in a bit. Let's first of all discuss this from the Inter perspective, because this result obviously has huge ramifications on the Scudetto race, which again we'll come to after. We're going to have a segment where we're going to go through all the 5 fixtures remaining for both teams. We're going to do a little bit of a breakdown and do a little bit of a prediction of how we think the season's going to finish. But the loss means that Inter are now level with Napoli with 5 games to go. So it's massive for the Scudetto race, but it came Nima after a very under par Inter performance.
It was abysmal. It was absolutely abysmal. Inzaghi didn't do any rotation, barely. Made 1 or 2. And it was an Inter that was completely devoid of all energy, mentally fatigued, physically fatigued. They could barely run. I was surprised that Bologna allowed Inter to disrupt the rhythm of the game as much as they did, and they themselves disrupted the rhythm of the game as well, because you'd think that a game like this would have, where Inter are this tired, you would have want to outrun and outpass them, but Bologna didn't. And if we're perfectly honest, they were quite lucky to win that game. It was a game that was really, really poor. Qualitatively, one of the worst games I've seen this season in the Serie A from both teams. But it was an Inter that was just not there. And this is kind of what I've been saying, that Inter don't have the depth physically, qualitatively, and psychologically in terms of strength to compete on all these fronts. What I'm kind of leaning into now is which team does. Bayern Munich don't. They're out of the Champions League and the German Cup. They're going to win the league. Real Madrid could end up the season with 0 trophies. They're trailing Barcelona in the league. They got the Copa del Rey coming up. They're out of the Champions League. Arsenal won't, because they bottled the Premier League. They're in the Champions League. They didn't win the League Cup. They didn't win the FA Cup. The only team aside from Barcelona who now have a chance at a treble, but will have to do without Lewandowski because of an injury, is PSG, because they are too good domestically, and they've won everything domestically, and they don't have any competition, so they're the only ones who can compete with this many games. Inter played their 50th game against Bologna. 50th. Now there's 5 left. There's 2 in the Champions League, 1 in the Coppa Italia. That's 8, and another 3 in the FIFA Club World Cup. That's 11 more games. If they go all the way to the final, we're talking 67, 68 games in a 10.5-year calendar month. I mean, this is absurd. That's not even counting the international matches. This is just not doable.
And this is coming off the back of what we've spoken about. I've been moaning about for years. This is coming off the back of basically no rest since
COVID.
Before COVID, the year before COVID. So 2020 was the COVID season.
Yeah.
Every single year there's been no rest. There was the mid-season World Cup, which accounted for the rest that summer, but that summer before there was a smaller holiday in the summer because they had to start the season earlier and then finish it later, and had the World Cup in the middle. So and now we've got the Club World Cup this year. So
And then you've got the World Cup next year. It's ridiculous.
I mean, it's the same for all the big teams, like you've just said, but it also makes it, like you said, it makes it very, very, I think Marotta said, makes it very, very difficult to try and compete on multiple fronts and win on all those fronts.
He says that, but he should be aware of that, and therefore Inter should plan for that. They haven't. So I get a little bit triggered when he says things that are rather evident when he's the one in charge of planning for those things at Inter. He's not in charge of those things at UEFA. He's not in charge of those things at FIFA. He's in charge of those things at Inter. And he knew this last summer, but they did not prepare for it. It's as simple as that. They got their preseason wrong. Inter have looked exhausted from match day 1 against Genoa until today. And now it's starting to cost them results. And it's looking exactly. This is exactly why I said that a couple of months ago that Inter need 4-5 point cushion going into the Bologna game. Bologna are a good side. We know this, okay? And so now they're on evil points with Napoli. They got Roma and Lazio coming up. A Roma who has not lost a game in 2025 in the Serie A, equaling Spalletti's record from 16-17, which we're going to get to. Lazio fighting for the Champions League. Whilst they got Torino away, which Napoli do as well. But then Napoli have got the most easiest run in ever. And even if, they've put themselves in this position by not prioritizing away tournaments.
I think
it's just...
a couple of things
idiotic.
I want to raise, which I think you're
idiotic. They should have played the C team in the Coppa Italia. There was no need for this. What's more important, the Serie A or the Coppa Italia? I mean, it's just idiotic.
I think I probably agree with you there. I think you have to, because of the number of games and what we're coming off 5 years of this, I think you do have to just lose something.
I mean, I remember when Sir Alex Ferguson did that in the League Cup back when. Because he said, look, I don't care. The Premier League and the Champions League are more important. And they criticized him for it, but he didn't give a damn. And he was right to not to give a damn.
No, for sure. But it's not going to get better because there's a Club World Cup that's come in, which the clubs are all very happy to play in because they're going to make a lot of money, a lot of money. And for Italian clubs, that's really important. But yeah,
we're not sure about that because they don't have a deal in place with the IRS, the US tax services, which could tax half their winnings. I mean, it's just an absolute mess. And that was in the New York Times, I think, last week. They don't have a deal with the IRS. They could take all their money.
Who doesn't have a deal? The
participating clubs in the FIFA Club World Cup don't have a deal with the US tax, with the Inland Revenue Service, which means they could take all their money away. So the whole thing is just
Trump's tariffs. No,
it's not Trump's tariffs. They don't have a deal in place. They don't have a deal in place to resolve this situation with the Club World Cup. They're hosting a tournament there. They're woefully unprepared. They don't have a deal in place with the IRS, which means that they could take out their winnings.
They didn't even have a TV deal. They had to make a dodgy deal with DAZN. Oops, I said it. Right. So anyway, to get back on track. With regards of not planning, that's one of the points I want to make. I've said this all season. I've said it since day one. The attack, when one of Lautaro or Thuram doesn't play, is a disaster. It just falls off a cliff. Luckily for Inter, I want to say luckily, I think it's also testament to the two players and probably the management of those two players. They've been fit, maybe not match fit all the time. Thuram hasn't been great in this calendar year, but they've been available for most of the season. If something had happened, one of them had been out for 3 months or something, it would have been a total disaster for Inter. But we saw in this game, Thuram's out, Correa comes in. Correa is a meme now.
He's been a meme for 4 years. Yeah. It was a stupid signing, 35 million down the toilet, should never have been signed, doesn't offer anything. And the issue is that when Thuram doesn't play, Inter lack depth forward because Thuram is very quick, he's very technical, he's very physically strong, and he can hold up the ball, and he can dribble past his man, and he can do all of those things in a high pace. Lautaro is very many things, very technical, fantastic player, but he's not very quick. He is quick, but he's not fast. He's not super fast. Thuram gives Inter profondità in attack. When he's not playing there, Inter don't have profondità in attack,
and they don't have a counter threat either. When if the other team are controlling the game or controlling territory, which is increasingly happening in Inter games now. If Thuram's not there, you can't get up the field. But the problem is, your alternatives are Correa, Taremi, who's going to go down as one of the biggest flops probably ever signings for Inter. I mean, he's a disaster. I mean, that chart. I mean, it probably would have been ruled off.
It would have. He blew his whistle.
But I mean, that says it all about him.
No, he had to score there. He had to score there. But
yeah,
him, there's no doubt about that. It's a fantastic.
But then Arnautovic is the other. But I'm surprised Arnautovic. If I'm going to blame him, I'm surprised Arnautovic doesn't start. I don't know whether he didn't have did he have a physical
he wasn't
problem?
fit enough. He wasn't fit enough to start. That's what they said. He wasn't fit enough to start the game.
Yeah, that can be the only.
And this is again like this thing about Taremi being some sort of a unique flop. I'm sorry, but compared to Morata, Emerson Royal, Jimenez, Vlahovic, Kupainen, Douglas Luiz, Zaniolo, Enzo Lefe, Varane, Belanova, Mats Hummels, Noah Okafor, Milik, Nico Gonzalez, Lloyd Kelly, Colpani, and Balotelli. I think calling him the greatest flop in Serie A history is ludicrous.
I didn't say Serie A. I said Inter. But he is.
But for Inter, he really isn't. He really isn't. Darko Panchev exists. Gabriel Batistuta exists. Then Dennis Bergkamp exists. He cost nothing. He came in the summer. He's not been very good, but he's also not been very well managed.
I didn't say that. He's been a disaster to me. If he's a reason why, or the lack of planning with the attack is not bringing in better backups, is why
he has been very poorly managed as well. Because as we now know, because again with Inter's lack of communication in terms of injuries, like with Arnautovic now that you didn't know, but because they said they dropped it kind of like that under the thing 5 minutes earlier. Is the fact that he by the way, he's been playing injured because he's got pubalgia and he's playing on painkillers all season, and he sacrificed himself for the team to the point where he got so injured he couldn't play for 3 weeks. I mean, this has been really poorly managed by Inter. The season he's not been handled well by Inzaghi. He's made
all I'm saying is this: whatever the reason for his poor performances, he's disaster.
Not been good. I'm not defending the performances. I just want to say I'm not defending the performances. That is a shocking miss. I know it's a fantastic last-ditch tackle. Don't get it twisted. It is a fantastic last-ditch tackle, but he has to score there. You can't miss an open goal like that. It's unacceptable.
I'm just saying the bottom line is this: Inter have got two forwards. If they had better backups, they'd be able to rotate. They would have options off the bench that could. And this has been Inter's big problem all season. And
but it's the midfield as well.
And they're lucky.
The midfield as well.
They're lucky. Yeah, the midfield will come into, but they're lucky Inter that Lautaro and Thuram have been fit for most of the season, because it would have been total disaster if one of them got like a 3-month injury or something like that. Then Inter are in big trouble. So that's where I think the planning was bad. And then, like you said, the midfield. I think the other point I want to make is,
I'm sorry, except for Mkhitaryan at the age of 36 has to play every single game, and if he doesn't, the fall off is huge. Barella, same thing there. Çalhanoğlu, same thing there. Because Fratesi, Zielinski's injured. He's not been very good either. He's been a disappointment this season too. So, they got it wrong last summer. Again, they won the Scudetto, and instead of taking a step forward, they took a step sideways. And this is what happens. Play stupid games, win stupid prizes. This is Inter repeating the same mistake over and over and over again.
Inter are still in the race for a treble. I mean, I think it's going to be very difficult. But what I will say is this, is Inter remind me now of Juventus in the last year of Allegri's first spell, and maybe the Sarri season. This is a team that have been the best team in Serie A for the last 5 years, right? Have comfortably been the strongest squad. Yeah, okay, maybe they haven't won as many titles as they should have done to represent that strength, but they've been easily the best squad, best club, best team in Serie A for the last 5 years. But for me, this Inter this season are clearly showing they're a team that are aging. They're a team that are in physical decline. They're a team that need refreshing, but they're still winning. They're still getting over the line just due to their experience, due to a winning mentality, due to a fantastic defense, even if the defense has shown a few more creaks recently, but generally, in comparison to other clubs in Europe and in Serie A, it's still one of the best around. And set pieces as well. If it wasn't for set pieces, where would Inter be this season? And also, I have to say, we said it before, the weakness of the opposition. Inter reminded me of that Juventus of Allegri at the end, where people could see they were in decline, but they were still winning, just about winning and getting over the line because of these other factors and not because they were really at their best. And that's how I see Inter now. And I think they need to heed that warning going into next season. Otherwise, they do risk following the path of Juventus, what we saw with Juventus after, where everything just fell apart. I'm not saying it's going to be like that off the pitch with Inter, but on the pitch, in terms of the squad, in terms of the age of the team. That's where I see Inter now. They might go on and win the treble, but that doesn't change my opinion of this as an Inter where you can see the clear signs of decline here.
No, you can. It's an aging squad. It's a very, very aging squad. And it's a squad. I don't know if it's. I think it's. I think it's a combination of things. I think it's an aging squad. I'm not sure if I'm quite with you there with Allegri there, because I think that the sheer number of games and the preseason, the way that they overworked them, they got it wrong from minute one. I mean, the number of late goals that Inter have conceded. It started on match day one with Bisek giving away a stupid penalty in the 95th minute. And then they lost to Milan when I was there in September, 89th minute winner. Juve 4-2 up with 15 minutes left, 4-4. Milan in the Supercoppa, 2-0 up, lose at the death, again 3-2. 87th minute equalizer by Philip Billing against Napoli. 2-0 up against Parma, 2-2 at full time. And then 94th minute against Bologna, Orsolini, and equalizer against Bayern Munich away, Thomas Müller, 88th minute. This is a team that concedes goals late, and it's down to, nervosismo, yes, but it's also down to mental and physical fatigue. I mean, a lot of that has been Jan Bisek, yes, and they need to sell him while they can. He's definitely not taken the steps in improvement that Inter had hoped, and he's directly responsible for many of these things I've mentioned. But it's also a structural issue. Inter aren't solid. Last season, you couldn't get a shot on target against Inter after the 75th minute. This season, as I've just explained, they just keep conceding late.
They set a record last season, didn't they?
Yeah,
there was a crazy record. They didn't concede for a goal.
Because they were physically and mentally in a better place. This season, they've just not got it right. And this notion of Inter being in a treble, no, the Inter should be worried about zero titoli. That's what they should be worried about. It is a real risk that Inter end the season with 0 titles. And all this nonsense and it is nonsense of a treble will just blow up in their faces. They're not going to win a treble. It's 0 chance of that happening.
It doesn't
They're
look
not going
like
to win the Scudetto.
When you've watched Inter play this season, it is quite astonishing that they are actually still in with a great chance of winning the treble. I mean, that is insane when you've watched them. And based on that, you'd think it's not going to happen. And also the sheer number of games as well. But I think that, I think this is a team that definitely is really physically really struggling. What they're also lacking in, and this needs to be addressed in the summer as well, is the lack of pace in this Inter team. Like sometimes, like even against Bayern, like you're watching them and you're thinking, they can't get. How do they get up the field? There's no pace in the team to get up the field. And in modern football, and I hate this about modern football. In modern football, you need speed, you need pace in your team, athleticism to get up the pitch. And like you said, with the exception of Thuram, how do you get up the pitch with Dumfries as well, but he's been out and he's been probably a big loss for that reason recently. But there's no speed in the team. And that's an issue as well. So a bit like Napoli. Napoli have got the same problem. They're fighting for the Scudetto. There's no speed in the team at all.
But what Napoli have is something Inter don't have, and that is that they have better attacking options. Raspadori, Neres, Cholito Simeone. They have
I agree with that.
They do. They have better attacking options. They have better attacking depth. They don't have a lot of speed, but they also play fewer games, and they have a coach who rigidly controls the system. It's not Joga Bonito, and they're incredibly tight defensively. Look, the Serie A is a league that is won by the team that concedes the least, and Inter are I think third for conceding. Napoli are the best.
Yeah. I mean, having said that, though, I have to say, I did think a draw was the fair result. Having said all that, I do think a draw would have been fair in this game. Goal kind of came out of nothing, came out of nowhere. It was an amazing goal. But again, probably DiMarco can be criticised as well. It's the
Absolutely.
second goal.
Absolutely.
It's the second goal this week that he's been guilty of not closing down his opponent. In fact, the defending for the Kane goal was Sunday League defending, going with his wrong foot to try and block that ball. I mean, that's the kind of thing you're taught at school when you're trying to block you don't go with the foot that he went with. I mean, that's real schoolboy defending. But the bottom line is something we've seen, like you've been moaning about for years, about how he doesn't close down the opponent.
Well, the reason he doesn't close down his opponent is because he's scared of getting done. And because the whole thing started with him actually closing down, but getting done every single time. And so his reaction to that was, you know what, I'm just going to stand off like an idiot and give the makers of space.
But these are in the penalty area, though. This is not one-on-one on the wing. Do you know what I mean?
It doesn't matter. He just doesn't close down players at all.
Just closing down a shot.
I mean, he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it. It started that season when Inter went to the Champions League final, where he got done a couple of times, and he said, no, I'm not doing that ever again. And so instead, he just stands off like an idiot. And this is why Inzaghi should not play him against teams like if DiMarco starts against Barcelona with Lamine Yamal, Barcelona are winning 7-1. It's as simple as that. Inter will have zero chance against Barcelona if Federico DiMarco starts against Barcelona. It's that simple. What, you're going to give Lamine Yamal time and space to attack you? Are you stupid? I mean, it's insane. I want
to ask you about that after, actually, when we preview the game. But I mean, let's discuss from Bologna. I mean, first of all, we have to talk about Riccardo Orsolini. I mean, wow, what a goal! I mean, that's a contender for goal of the season. I mean, the way this kind of side scissor kick, the cross comes in, and the athleticism. It reminded me of the late Gianluca Vialli. And I've told this story when I spoke to Gianluca, and I rung him up actually to ask if he could come onto our show for an interview, and he rung me back, and just to tell me that he wasn't able to do the interview because he wasn't feeling the best. That maybe he was probably ill at the time, and I won. So the amount of respect I won for him for calling me just to tell me he wouldn't do the interview when we'd never spoken before. Which was amazing. That's a side story. But Vialli scored a goal like that for Sampdoria against Arsenal, which was the first game that I was ever taken to live. My dad took me to Highbury to watch. I think it was in 1991. I was 6 years old. It was a pre-season Makita Cup tournament that they used to hold every single game, every single year before the tournament. And a cross coming from the right, and Vialli did exactly the same kind. You can still see it on YouTube. Exactly the same kind of scissor kick, unbelievable, sort of like side scissor kick. And I mean, that goal from Orsolini is unbelievable. And it brings us on to a bigger kind of question now with Orsolini. Is Orsolini, Nima, is Orsolini ready for a big club now?
Well, it depends on what you mean, big club. Do you mean he's ready to go to a Juve, Milan,
yes,
maybe even Napoli to play as a winger? I don't know if he's a starter, but he definitely could throw his hat in the ring as a rotation squad player. Yes. I think if you score these kinds of goals that he does, if you score decisive goals repeatedly, as he's done, and he's not maybe the most natural raw talent out there, but what he has, which others don't, is an incredible work rate, dedication, and he improves season upon season. He just keeps improving, and that's what he's done. And that's similarly, some would say, to Zaccagni, and that's why he's at the level, both of them are at the level they are, because they keep that slow grind, that slow improvement year on year.
And he's got 12 Serie A goals this season now. 14 in all competitions, plus 3 assists. Only Retegui, Keane, Thuram, and Lookman have more goals in Serie A this season, which I think is very, very impressive. I think that I agree with you. I mean, even in this game, he come on as a sub in this game with like 20, 25 minutes to go. Maybe, he is that kind of player. Maybe he is a bit of like a Chico Conceição kind of. He is better off the bench. against tiring teams where he'll run at you and he's got like that work rate and I just think that now I think big clubs can't ignore him now, and I also would ask the question: surely Luciano Spalletti can't ignore him. I know Spalletti plays a back three, but as we discussed after the last international break, Spalletti doesn't know how to use a back three. So what is the point of Spalletti carrying on with a back three if he doesn't know how to use it? Would we not be better off, given that we've got two strikers who are having fantastic seasons in Retzky and Keane, right? Who I don't think can play together. So you're only playing one or the other. Then you've got Zaccagni, who's been one of the best players of the season in Serie A as a left winger. And you've got Orsolini, who's performing like this and has got, the record that he's got in terms of goals this season as a potential right winger. All of a sudden, you're thinking, well, we've actually got a few more options. I don't know. I'm not saying yes, but I'm saying that surely Spalletti can't just ignore him because of the system issue.
No, I don't think he can. And I think that whether or not if Zaccagni and Orsolini are your starters, yeah. I mean,
but what's the alternative? I mean,
well,
Daniel Maldini is a support striker.
The alternative is appointing a manager who knows how to play with a back three, because that's the best system you have. That's the alternative to get the best out of the squad you have. If you want to continue with Spalletti, then play a 4-3-3. But then if Zaccagni and Orsolini turn out not to be good enough and you miss a third World Cup, don't come crying. Like, it's just, I'm sorry, but that's just how it is. If you have it's international football. You have this pool of players. If you can't fit in the best players into your system, you shouldn't have that coach. And if that coach lacks the ability to get the best out of the players available to him, he shouldn't have that job. It's that simple.
Yeah, it's a tricky one, but I think what he's done, he needs to look at him.
He should definitely be in the squad.
Because I don't see other Italians. I don't see Maldini doing this, and he's getting in the squad.
No, Maldini. He should definitely be in the squad. There's no doubt about that. Orsolini and Zaccagni should definitely be in the squad, and they should definitely consider it as an option. Yes. But if we're talking long-term, Italy going far in the World Cup or even reaching the World Cup, I'm not quite sure Zaccagni, Orsolini, Retegui, or Keane gives me much confidence.
I don't expect us to be a challenger to win the World Cup, regardless of who we play. But there's still a year to go. Who knows? Let's see. Well, I do one thing that is for sure, though, is Vincenzo Italiano. I mean, you've been singing his praises for a good few months now. Your turnaround of how he's changed your mind. And, I mean, he's now, we've got to say, Bologna are up to fourth now. Juventus won't play now because of the Pope's death. And they're right in now with a chance of finishing in that top four. They've got to play Juventus in next week. In fact, that might be, that'll be the game after this weekend. So next week they're playing, which is a huge match for the top four. I mean, we have to say Italiano, he's in there in the reckoning for manager of the season in Serie A.
There's no doubt about that. Absolutely no doubt about that. The way that Bologna, this is the thing that has impressed me the most about him, is the way that he adapts in games when it's not working. Okay, he got himself sent off in this game because he was pissed. But still, the plan was there. The way that they adapted, the way that his read of games, his substitutions, his ability to change games, and also the improvement defensively. They don't defend like his team doesn't defend like they did at Fiorentina or Spezia. It's not man-man marking across the pitch. It's actually far more sophisticated than that. And the results have shown that, because the way as well that the way that they play themselves out of tight spaces, the way that they also know when to press, when not to press, it's not the same Italiano. And it's so impressive. He's going to be in the final of the Coppa Italia. That's the third season he's in the final of a knockout tournament. He was in the Coppa Italia and Conference League twice. Coppa Italia once with Fiorentina. This season he's definitely going to be there with Bologna. They could win that.
No 4 finals in 3 years,
yeah. And okay, if he has nothing to show for it, that's also an argument, but still 4 finals in 3 years.
Mm.
He could finish top 4 with Bologna, which would eclipse anything Thiago Motta did by a mile, because he doesn't have the same quality of players that Thiago Motta did. But he's done so producing not just intelligent defensive football and improve from that aspect. They're one of the most informed teams in Serie A. I mean, after the Napoli game, I think I tweeted out something. I think they're the best team in the Serie A on form right now.
They've got two losses in 20 games.
It's insane. I mean, the football they play as well, the way they construct, the way they build, it is so good. It's
the way they press, the way they press and counter press as well is
it's so good. They're so well drilled, and he's doing a miraculous job. Again, if given we're going to get to that, if I'm Aurelio De Laurentiis and Antonio Conte is moaning and pissing as much as he is, I'm not too worried. Because we know that Aurelio De Laurentiis has wanted Vincenzo Italiano for years. I think it would be, at this point, you're not too concerned if Antonio Conte leaves, if you're Napoli. Instead, you'll say, you know what? Thank you for this time. Goodbye. Arrivederci. Welcome, Vinny Italian. Play your 4-3-3. Here's the players to do it. And the kind of manager he is in terms of improving players that are there, young players, older players. I mean...
For sure.
Wow.
Let's move on to Napoli, though, now, who 24 hours before Inter won 1-0 at Monza, and it was Scott McTominay to the rescue. Let's be honest, this was a awful performance by Napoli against a team that are relegated already, and not mathematically, but they're going down. I think they could go down this weekend. Actually, I think this weekend they could be relegated. Monza. It's a terrible Monza team, and Napoli barely created anything really until they were rescued by McTominay and defensive howler from the goalkeeper
Turati and Caldirola. Caldirola and Turati. I mean, what are they doing? One dumber than the other. It's one of the most embarrassing defensive actions.
What do they call it in Sweden? I love that. What's
when the goalkeeper's out hanging laundry out to dry. That's what they call it in Sweden. When a goalkeeper goes out like that, he's out hanging laundry out on the clothesline outside, hanging out laundry to dry. I mean, it was just it's extraordinary.
It was extraordinary. I mean, look, McTominay's had an amazing week, and he scored 2 against Empoli. Was it Empoli? Yeah. Was it Empoli? Yeah. Who did they beat? Who did they beat last Monday?
It was Empoli.
It was Empoli. Yeah. So he scored 2 against Empoli, and then he scores here the winner header, another header. The guy's a monster in the air. 9th Serie A goal of the season now, 10 in all competitions. As we said last week, we did quite a big segment on him. Like incredible signing. He's almost becoming the Scudetto man, as they say in Italy. The one with the Scudetto, yeah. I mean, he probably has been their main man now consistently throughout the whole season. He's been the consistent man and the decisive man, and the man that's always when they need it has stepped up. Fantastic, because to be honest with you, this was we criticised Inter for their bad performance. This was every bit as bad as Inter's performance, especially when you take the opposition into account. This is Monza. This is not Bologna. This was awful, but they just about win. That's about as much praise as I can give Napoli, honestly, from this game. It's the first time since January that they've won 2 games in a row, so that's important. But in terms of the overall performance, I thought it was a team, again, like Inter, it's a team that really when Nerazzurri isn't playing. This Napoli team has no pace. It has no attacking real inspiration or difference makers. I mean, they started Spinazzola, Lukaku, and Politano up front. That's 3 32-year-olds or 3 players that are going to be 32 this year. I mean, it's an aging team. I know we're going to talk about Conte in a bit, but it's a team that I think they need to, like Inter, I think they need to do a lot of work at the summer spending, because otherwise this team is going to decline quickly, this team, because of it. But having said all that, they're level on top of the table. So, they could win the Scudetto.
No, they absolutely. I think now it's Napoli Scudetto to lose. If you look at the remaining fixtures that both of these teams have left, you cannot sit here and tell me that Torino, Lecce, Genoa, Parma, Cagliari is a difficult
Well, we'll come on to
challenge.
that. We'll come on to that in the segment. What I do want to talk about here before we talk about Inter versus Napoli is Conte, Antonio Conte. The criticism before, during as well, actually, and after the match. This was the Conte show, really. So first of all, let me just get the news in first. So the press conference on Friday was, and I quote, he says, "A lot of things were said at the beginning of the year. I can confirm some, but not others. I won't deny anything, but I don't feel comfortable confirming everything I said. The matter with Kvaratskhelia was clear. I said Napoli shouldn't be a stepping stone, and I don't want to seem like a liar about things that didn't happen. In these 8 months in Naples, I've understood that many things just can't be done." I mean, that is pretty damning. That's pretty clear. That's him. I mean, I already knew. Conte was obviously very unhappy with not so much the sale of Kvaratskhelia, although of course he'd be unhappy with that, but the failure to actually replace him properly. And then De Laurentiis hit back, basically saying that he shouldn't be saying these things while the season is on. Evaluations like this during the process could create unease, so it's always better to save that for the end. Kind of the usual De Laurentiis gaslighting, basically accusing Conte of causing unease when it's obviously the other way around. With the way
I'd say they're two professional gaslighters with egos the size of the galaxy who refuse to take responsibility for anything. I mean,
but in this case with Kvara,
but with Kvara, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I remember him. Has everyone collectively forgotten the last time Kvara played for Napoli? How it looked when Conte took him off. How it didn't work at all under Conte, and Conte was basically massacring him and took him off, and then he didn't even shake Conte's hand, and that was the last we saw of Kvara in a Napoli shirt.
Okay. Well, that was De Laurentiis' reply. Then during the match, when McTominay scored the winner, Conte insulted Napoli fans who were having a go at him, and I'm not sure exactly what he said, but it was probably something we can't repeat on this pod. And then in the post-match presser, it still continued. He said, and this was basically him suggesting he could leave at the end of the season. He says, "I cannot live on miracles rather than planning. I don't want to be massacred. I saw looting of our projects," which is a wow. So when you see all
not
this,
just that, in the press conference he said, at the end of the year, I'm going to meet with the president, and we're going to speak in a clear manner. I have to protect myself. I'm not putting my butt out there to be.
Yeah. Yeah. We know what you mean, Nima.
That's what he said.
Yeah.
Literally what he said. He said, "I'm not putting my butt out there to be abused."
Right.
Which,
yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
I have to protect myself. I mean, this was Antonio Conte. This is going exactly the way. Remember, I want everyone to remember, he's top of the Serie A and he's acting like this. Okay, he's overperforming. He's about to win a Scudetto, which would be his Mona Lisa in his career. It would be the biggest overachievement. It would eclipse finishing 4th with Spurs, with Matt Doherty, a championship player, as your fullback. It would eclipse beating that Spain with Graziano Pelle Giaccherini. It would eclipse all of that if he wins the Scudetto with this Napoli side. And this is how he goes out. He says, "I have to protect my backside from not being..." I mean...
Okay. Well, simple question now. Then it's probably not a simple question, but do you think Antonio Conte will still be at Napoli next season?
I don't think so. I'd be very surprised. I mean, he on the one hand, he's not stupid. He also knows that he's in demand. He has relaunched his career. Look, I'm not counting the couple, the 13 or 12 games he did at Atalanta in 2010. This is his 6th full season in the Serie A as a coach. 3 with Juve, 2 with Inter, now 1 with Napoli. Out of the 5 he's completed, he's won 4 Serie A titles. He's on course of winning 5 out of 6. He has relaunched his career. He knows that the big jobs now are an option. Juventus are being rumored with him. Milan are being rumored with him. He's not stupid. He's making it very, very clear to Napoli and to everyone else, I'm here.
He's also not stupid in that as he looks at this Napoli squad, it's a very aging team. Like I said, 3 32-year-olds started in attack in this match. It's a team that is so clear to see cannot fight on a European and a domestic front next season. It can't. It will. This next season, if this is the squad they go in with next season, they're going to struggle in Serie A. I would actually say I don't even think they'll get in top 4 with this squad next season. I'm confident to say that now with this squad. So they need to do a lot of work. I think they will do work, and they'll have the Osimhen money, they'll have the Clara money. They're going to have money to spend, and they'll have the Champions League money as well. So I expect them. They need to do a lot of work, but as we've seen, it's very difficult. When you need to revolutionise a lot, as we've seen with Juventus this season, it's very, very difficult. And also the limitations, as Conte said, some things are just not possible in Naples. They've got a certain
some things are not possible with Antonio Conte.
Well, as well. But I think that, like you said, he's not stupid. He probably thinks, if I win the league, that's as good as it's going to get. I can't do any better than that with Napoli. But if I go to Juventus, if I go to Milan, the ceiling is much, much higher. And, he maybe has his eye on maybe going to Milan and winning, who knows, winning another Scudetto with another team. But even if they don't win the Scudetto with Napoli, I think he'll have the same excuse. You messed up in January with Clara. I'm sure he'll say that at the end of the season if they don't win. He'll blame that for them not winning the Scudetto. I think win or lose the Scudetto, I think there's a very good chance that Conte leaves at the end of the season.
I think so as well. I think it was always going to end that way. I think everyone knew it. Those two can't get along. This was basically appointing Conte was De Laurentiis' way of saving face in Naples after the disastrous Scudetto defense, which was the worst ever. And he had to do it. And now it's obvious that the ceiling has been hit. Even if they were to spend money, they're not a club that can spend the kind of money that Antonio Conte wants. They're never going to be that. And Antonio Conte has also a ceiling. And that ceiling is he can't compete on more than one front at a time. I'm sorry. And that's just the reality. And Napoli can't have that.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. Not only is the squad not able to,
like I said, his history. Like I said, when I praised him, I looked at his history. Yes, 6th full season, 4 wins, maybe 5 out of 6, which is unbelievable. I would argue that he's probably the greatest Italian league manager of all time. But
if he wins this season, I think we can say that.
Yeah, but equally, he has his limitations, and he cannot compete on more than one front at a time. He just can't because he over prepares, and for whatever he sucks he's too demanding, and that's just who he is. You got to take the good with the bad.
Yeah. Okay. Quickly then, let's do Scudetto predictions. 5 games left. Inter 71 points, Napoli 71 points. Just to be clear, if the season is to finish level as it is now, it goes to head-to-head, which are the same. The goal difference will only count in deciding who's at home in the playoff, which will be Inter for certain, because they've got a far superior goal difference, which isn't going to be...
it's going to be played at San Siro, yeah.
Yeah, it's going to be played at San Siro.
If it ends that way.
If it ends level. So let's go through the run-ins. What I want us to do is both of us to, game by game, predict win, lose, or draw for both teams, and then the final points tally. So let's do Inter first, right? So let's go game by game. Inter, first of all, play Roma at home. Win, lose, or draw for Inter?
Draw.
I have a draw as well for that game. Hellas Verona at home.
Win
for me. Torino away.
Draw.
I have a win. Lazio at home.
Win.
I'm going to go for a draw for that. No, I'm going to go for a win for that as well. And then finally, Como away.
Draw.
I'm going to go for a draw as well. So I have 82 points. No, sorry. Yes, 82 points, the final tally for
I have
Inter.
80. I have Inter on 80. They have
80 points.
3 draws and 2 wins. That's 9 points. So I have Inter on 80.
80. Okay. Now let's do Napoli. So Napoli, Torino at home. Win, lose, or draw?
I think they're drawing that.
You think a draw? Okay.
Yeah.
Lecce away. Oh, sorry. I'm going to say win. I'm going to say they're going to win against Torino. Lecce away.
They're winning that.
Win for me. Genoa at home.
Winning that.
I've got a win as well. Parma away.
They're winning. I think they're drawing that.
I've got a draw for that. Cagliari at home.
Winning that.
I've got a win. So you're finishing on 82 points then, aren't you, for Napoli?
Yeah.
And I'm finishing on 84, but I think it could easily be 82 as well. So basically, we both got different points tallies, but we both have Napoli winning the Scudetto by 2 points at the end of the season.
Yeah. This is exactly why I was saying months ago that Inter need a 5-point cushion going into the Bologna game. And that those drop points against Monza, against Genoa, against Parma, those are 6 points. Inter needed those 6 points. Look, the Serie A is won not always by how you do against your direct rivals, but how well you do against the bottom teams. Parma, Genoa, and Monza are teams, or Monza and Parma for certain, are teams in the bottom. Inter lost 4 points there. And Genoa, 2-2 95th minute equalizer is unforgivable.
And the only thing I would say is, again, on paper, there's no doubt about it. On paper, based on the fixture list, Napoli should win the title, or they're the favourites to win the title. No doubt about that. Nobody can argue with that. The issue is that, and also when you take into account the number of games, 2 games in the Champions League, maybe 3, although that will come at the end of the season, and then the Coppa Italia as well. You know, they're going to the tiredness coming in. You know, Napoli on paper are the favourites, but Napoli still have to win those games. And as I said before, this is only the second game in a row that Napoli have won since January. And watching Napoli play and the way they barely really even deserve to beat Monza, the idea that Napoli are going to win all 5 games, you know, they'll have to go against what we've seen.
I don't have them winning all 5 games.
I know you don't. I'm just saying it's not going to be like, oh, they're just going to cruise to win these 5 games because on paper they're easy games. Napoli are not good enough to win these 5 games. Just to say,
but they're good enough to draw 2 and win 3, and that's the point. For Inter, they need to do the same. They need to keep up with Napoli. And given 2 games against Barcelona, when this Milan Derby is played, a potential final in between against Bologna in the Coppa Italia, no chance. Like this Inter that we saw, that is like the Walking Dead, like zombies.
You know what would be mad if this goes to if this goes to a playoff, it could be 3 days before the Champions League final.
That's another thing. I mean, it's idiotic.
Could you imagine that?
Yeah, of course I can imagine it. But it's again, what the hell are the Serie A thinking? It's like, do you not want your teams to do well?
That would be insane. That would be the most Serie A thing ever if they actually did that and self-sabotage the chance of winning the Champions League.
No, if they're doing that, if I'm Inter, I'm sending in the Primavera. I'm going full Angelo Moratti against Juve in the 60s and saying, you know what? You're going to fuck with me. Here you go. I'm sending in the kids. Give the Scudetto. Here's your Scudetto. Like this, it's ridiculous. It's utterly ridiculous.
Anyway, look, let's move on. Milan, Atalanta. This wasn't a particularly great game. The first half was terrible, but Atalanta win the game with an excellent second half performance. Great win for them. Ederson, man of the match, with the match winner. He was fantastic. I thought Bellanova was really, really good in this game as well. His performance against Rafael Leao. Lookman back more towards his usual self. De Rome was good. The Atalanta players generally turned up in this game, and Atalanta get their second big win in a row, beating Bologna the week before, then beating Milan. They've returned to their form just in time. Now I think I'm happy to go on record and say top four's in the bag now for Atalanta. They've got a little 4 to 5 point cushion guaranteed at the end of the match day. Well, it is guaranteed now because there's no games on Monday. And they've got a really, really excellent run in now. Lecce at home, Monza away. Only Roma at home is a difficult game. They've got Genoa at home, Parma away. They're definitely going to get top 4. I would say they're looking pretty certain for third as well. I would say. So, yeah, Atalanta have managed to just get themselves together in time to clinch the top 4.
They ended the crisis in the most resolute way that they could to see off the Gasperini era, because I don't think he stays. I'd be very surprised if he stays now. And they did it against 2 impressive wins. I'd say the first half, they're 2 wins where they were much more careful. It kind of started already against Lazio. It wasn't this kind of, it was a much more measured approach. And it's kind of annoying because if you look at this from an Atalanta perspective, because if they had played like this, if they had this measured approach, they'd actually be in a Scudetto race as well. They could have even won that Scudetto. This is a Scudetto that you can win when Inter are in the state they're in and Napoli is their main contender. This was a winnable Scudetto for Atalanta if they had managed it somewhat better. So there is some ramarico there, but they do handle these 2 games really, really well, and they clinched third. I just have to say, in terms of team goals, I know we're going to get to Milan, and I have lots to say about how Milan played. But if you're talking about team goals, just look at that, the way that they build the Atalanta goal. It is poetry.
Great team goal, yeah.
Poetry. From right to left, from left to right, passing, movement. It's beautiful football. Yes, Milan did not make it difficult on them, and we're going to get to that, but it doesn't take away that Atalanta are such a well-coached and well-drilled team when they're at their best. And I hope whoever takes over can build on that and can manage games better. And that's why if we want to have, from an objective point of view, if we want a Serie A that is exciting with an Atalanta that maybe even wins the Scudetto, Maurizio Sarri is the guy I go to.
Yeah, banging on the Sarri drum. Let's talk about Milan. We said in last week's show, how Milan changed to a 3-4-3 against Udinese, how it worked great. They won 4-0. It got the best out of Leao and Teo Hernandez, especially Leao. Scored a great goal. They both scored great goals. How Conceição has, since he joined Milan, has tried everything desperately to try and find some kind of solution to sort them out, and how everything had failed. And now he's tried this 3-4-3. Is it finally the answer? Could they finish the season on a high? Could Conceição even finish on such a high that it puts his hat in the ring to suggest, maybe continue with me? Well, we got the answer to all that in this game. The performance, the result. They barely created anything in this game. 0.62 XG, 1 shot on target. Same number of shots that Inter had on target. I should have said before as well. Just barely created anything against an Atalanta team. Even Toloi was playing. I mean, an Atalanta team who it's not that hard to create against. Recently, they deservedly lost the game. So that answered it. It wasn't the right solution. And now this is it. This is Serie A season over for Milan. They're not even going to get into Europe. They're 5 points. They're going to finish the weekend 5 points off the European spots. And so the only way they can get into Europe is winning the Coppa Italia now. They're not going to make 5 points in 5 games. They've got a hard run in as well. That's it. Serie A season's over for Milan.
Yeah, it is. And it's been over for quite some time, if we're perfectly honest. You can tell the players don't care. The coach, they know the coach isn't going to be there. He doesn't care. They care about the Coppa Italia. They haven't won that in 24 years, in 20 years, over 20 years, and they know that a trophy means more. Trophies are forever. And if they end the season with 2 trophies, despite the fact that they've had an atrocious season, this kind of, it doesn't make it better, but it soothes things. It makes it bearable. The Serie A season is horrible. Yes, it's been a complete flop, but they still have two pieces of silverware to show for it. Whilst Inter could finish second in all, or second in the Champions League, second, and win nothing. Like, do you know what I mean? Trophies matter at this level, and for them to stop having won 2 trophies, beating Inter along the way would mean loads for the credibility of the project, the belief in the environment. So look, the Serie A is over for them. It's been over for a long time. Their focus is on the Coppa Italia. We know that.
Yeah, the point I want to make is on Rafael Leao. See, Rafael Leao was fantastic against Udinese, brilliant. But then you watch him play in this game, and it really sums him up, that the inconsistency to go from that performance just a week before to this performance. And I mean, there's an incredible stat on Rafael Leao. Rafael Leao this season has not scored a single goal at home at San Siro in Serie A. Not a single goal all season. I mean, that's unbelievable. This is Rafael Leao. This is somebody who's supposed to be a superstar. Is supposed to be one of the best players, best individual talents in world football, that led Milan to the Scudetto with that incredible, those incredible performances. And he hasn't scored a goal at San Siro all season. I mean, it's unbelievable. There was one moment in I think it was in the second half, where he had a simple run to make just inside the left side of the penalty area, and he made completely the wrong run. And as a result, the chance went begging. He would have been through on goal. And that's, for me, that summed up the problems with Rafael Leao. This is a player that on the ball is capable of doing anything, capable of doing things that only a few people in the world can do. The players like Mbappe, like Vini Jr. But he's a player that off the ball, he doesn't have that top elite game understanding, the understanding of positioning, the understanding of movement, of teamwork, working with his team, being just in the right areas, making the decision making that final pass. He picks the wrong options too much. And the mental side of the game, which we've spoken about a lot before. He doesn't have the elite mentality of a top player either. And I think that's where we are with Rafael Leao. But where we also are, and this is a broader point that I really wanted to raise, and I'd like to get your opinion on this as well, is I think we're in a position with football today in 2025 where there's no room for individual superstars. Not just talking about Rafael Leao, but we're talking about here in a week where Kylian Mbappe and Vini Jr. were both humiliated, as were Real Madrid. The Real Madrid Galacticos by Arsenal, a collective Arsenal team, an Arsenal team that were well organised, well structured, played as a team against this Galactico Madrid full of superstars. Bellingham, Vini Jr., Kylian Mbappe, individual stars that you want to watch, you want to come and watch play, but you can't. Madrid, Carlo Ancelotti, who's probably the best, maybe the best there's ever been at fitting superstars and getting it to work, hasn't been able to do that with Real Madrid. It's been a complete failure, impossible to work. And you get this collective Arsenal team that come along and beat them. And we've seen now, with Milan, with Rafael Leao this season and Theo Hernandez, 2 kind of superstar type players. Milan just haven't been able to make it work at all, haven't been able to work out structure. are we now in a situation in football where these players, you just can't have these individual superstars anymore?
You can, as long as they also understand that they have to work in a system. Unfortunately, the era of the Riquelmes is long gone. The Dybalas, you have to make them work in a system, and that's just the unfortunate evolution of football, the pace and power and structure and the tactical evolution of the game. That's just how it is, unfortunately.
It's sad though, isn't it?
Yeah, there is a melancholy, a melancholic element.
Do we want to see this kind of football though? Do we want to see football where it's just, and I hate to quote this guy, but Steve Nicol, of all people, was saying on ESPN about Man City, and I agree with it. He says, you watch Man City play with Pep Guardiola now, it's like watching just a bunch of robots. It's boring. I don't want to watch it anymore. It's just, you pass here, they're all remote controlled, right? A bit like Thiago Motta's football, obviously without the results with Motta. It's where is the individual magic? And they're not, there's no space for them anymore.
But it's a lot of team sports have turned into that. In other sports, ice hockey is completely robotic now. That's why I've lost a lot of interest in it. And same thing with handball as well. A lot of team sports have lost that individual brilliance as it becomes more professionalized, as it becomes more scientific. That is where we're headed to. But I mean, at the end of the day,
said, can I just to come in on that point, Nima? Ronaldo said something similar last summer. I think when he was talking about, I think it was during the Euros, because we all watched Euro 2024, and it was just unwatchable. And he basically said, I don't even watch football anymore. He goes, it's boring. There's no magic. There's no individual stars. There's no, and this is when you think of us when we were kids, Nima, and again, my friend told me I was speaking to a friend the other day, and he Red Star big Red Star Belgrade supporter. His name's Pete, and he doesn't watch football anymore. And he was one of the biggest football fans, that there is. And he doesn't watch it for the same reason, because he says, when we were kids, it's kind of the same kind of age as us, a bit older than us. And he says, when we were kids, who were the players that I looked up to? Who were the players you looked up to? You look out for these individual stars. They make you fall in love. Now, if you're a kid nowadays and you're watching football, and it's shown a lot, I mean, Andrea Agnelli spoke about this as well, about the youngsters, how there's not the same interest in football with the youngsters. And part of that is societal, the way that they've got short attention spans and all that. I understand that. But it's also, I think it's a harder sell to kids when you don't have these individual superstars that we had when we were kids. Who is there to look up to and say, I want to be like him. I want to play football. I want to do that. When all you're watching is like robot football, people just collective. It's not something that you want to mimic, I think. And I think that's a problem for football. I think football needs to, and then when you add, you were saying, so when you add all that, there's so many games and players are tired and the games are flat because of it, and the best players might be injured, like the Bayern Munich versus Inter game. I think football is in a bit of an existential crisis here. They need to look at themselves and they need to think, right, where are we going with football? Do we want to turn football into something that the fans don't want to watch anymore? So that's something I think they need to look into that.
Well, I mean, you say that, but at the same time, I look at these other team sports that I mentioned, and the fans do want to watch that. It's just, it's they have collectivized it to the point where they've killed the individual superstar. You still see the technical brilliance every now and again, but it's not as commonplace. But they have no problems filling out those seats, and they have no problems filling out those. I mean, it's just, I guess it's just become a different sport. I suppose it's become a different, kind of new people are drawn to it. I suppose. I don't know. I just know that the football that we grew up is no longer, and it hasn't been around for a long time. And I've kind of accepted that, and I've kind of, it is what it is. But what happens moving forward is impossible to say. I think the existential crisis that football does have is what we've spoken about, the injuries. I mean, the sheer number of games and the injuries that they cause when the biggest matches don't have the biggest stars because they are dead, physically, mentally cooked. That is a problem for football. That is a problem for football. And now they're talking about making the 2032 World Cup in Saudi Arabia for 62 teams. I mean, I don't even know what to say anymore.
It's just
62 teams.
It's just more. It's just the greed. Greed kills everything in the end. It is the obsession, money, and greed kills things. It kills. This is what happens.
I was for expanding the World Cup because I thought 32 with the quality of players and the emergence of new nations was not enough. But 62.
At least we'll qualify, Nima. At least we can't possibly not qualify if there's 62 teams, Nima. That's for sure.
62 teams. Like
mad.
That's not what?
I know. Listen, let's move on. Roma Verona, very, very quickly. Not a vintage Roma, but they get the win. Good first half, containing second half. Two players I want to single out. First of all, Soulé. After the Derby goal, magical assist for this. The first touch, beats his man, dinks it over the keeper. Just as we were saying before, these are the kind of players that we want to see more of in football that can do these kind of individual bits of magic. So yeah, let's hope that Soulé can be one of those few going forward. So that was great. And then Shomurodov. I mean, I think it's such an amazing story. Shomurodov. He's becoming a real kind of cult hero, isn't he? He's becoming one of these really unlikely cult players that, you just think, he's just like you're willing him on to score because he's just such a kind of funny character. And Ranieri again. I mean, this is Ranieri. This is all on Ranieri. He would have been sold in January. He said, no, do not sell him. And most people would have thought, what the hell? Why do you want to keep Shomurodov? And he scores the winner here. He's got a lot of important goals for Roma in the second half of the season. Juventus, Athletic, Frankfurt, this goal here. A few important assists as well. I mean, yeah, they continue their form. 17 unbeaten, 12 wins, unbeaten in 2025. And again, they're still there in the top four. They're not going away. They're difficult, but they've got some head-to-head games there. Fiorentina, Atalanta, Milan. I mean, they're there. And
Luciano Spalletti in 2016, January to May, had a 17-game unbeaten run, won 14, drew 3. Roma have 17 games unbeaten under Ranieri, 12 wins, 5 draws. It's
brilliant. And still he says he won't continue, which brings me on nicely to the big question. Yeah, this brings me on nicely to the big question, and that is the future of Carlo Ancelotti. Carlo Ancelotti will definitely leave Real Madrid at the end of the season. That's guaranteed. Even if he somehow wins La Liga, which looks unlikely, looks like Barcelona are going to win it, he's going to leave. They were knocked out by Arsenal in the Champions League last week, convincingly, 5-1 on aggregate. They got completely outplayed in that tie, and they have a Coppa del Rey final against Barcelona, but that won't be enough. Just to close this Real Madrid chapter, I do want to say first that I don't really blame him for the failure this season. I said at the start of the season, when everyone was going crazy about the Mbappe signing, they've just won the Champions League, it's not fair. They got in. I said to him, I looked at it and I said, I remember saying it on this show. I said, I don't see how he can fit Mbappe and Vinny into the same team and make it work. I said that on this show.
Well, especially when you have a really aging Luka Modric and you don't have a replacement for Toni Kroos. Look, the reason why they won all those Champions Leagues is because they dominated the midfield. They are rebuilding. They're in a rebuilding phase, and they've gotten certain pieces right, but their midfield is a problem. They've
gone to Galactico in the sense that a bit like that Galactico team that when they had Zidane and Figo, they brought in the Brazilian Ronaldo, and they got rid of Makelele, who was imperative for that midfield and was brilliant, and they didn't replace Makelele, and then they were a disaster in the Champions League. And similarly here, they got rid of Toni Kroos, they didn't replace him, so they've lost the midfield. They're losing the midfield battles, but also in attack. It just doesn't work. There's no way for them, and I would say this in any era, to get Bellingham, Mbappe, and Vinny working in the same team. It doesn't
Well,
work.
you can, but then you can't play. Mbappe can't play centrally. He wants to play wide, and then that presents a whole other can of worms.
But even if you play him centrally, he's not the same. He's not the same
I mean,
player.
they don't. Mbappe doesn't want to play centrally.
He doesn't either. But even with Bellingham, it doesn't work with Bellingham because Bellingham, I don't even know what his position is. Bellingham, I think he's a bit of a problem positionally for modern football. I don't know what, but he's not a centre midfielder. He's not a number 10 because he can't dictate and control the games.
He can be a number 10 in a position
like a McTominay kind of role.
Yeah, like if you remember the 4-2-3-1 Spalletti had with Perotta kind of thing.
Yeah, he's a kind of a late runner into the box.
But then you need a Benzema striker. Do you know what I mean? You need a number 9.
You need someone who can hold it up, can make the space, vacate the space. Yeah. So, I mean, the point I'm making is I don't blame Ancelotti because I just think that, listen, if he couldn't get this sorted with these players, I don't think anyone could because Ancelotti's proved himself to be the best there is at getting superstars that don't really work together on paper and just finding a way to make it work, even if tactically he's not the most tactical manager in terms of, rigidly training a team. But he's going to leave. Now, Brazil still want to appoint Ancelotti as their manager and probably are the favourites still right now. They need to hire a permanent manager. The World Cup's next year. It'd be a one-year job. Maybe, at his age, he'd want to take that, Ancelotti. But the Italian media is heavily linking Ancelotti to Milan and Roma. So let's discuss both teams, Nima. First of all, Milan. Ancelotti back to Milan. Obviously, legendary career there as a player, then as a manager, won 2 Champions Leagues, won the Scudetto, created one of the greatest teams there's ever Champions League history. Would this be a good marriage for them to return to one another, Nima?
I think if you look at Ancelotti, there's 2 elements to this. Would Ancelotti suit this Milan well? Well, he and Zlatan love each other. Zlatan Ibrahimovic absolutely loves Carlo Ancelotti. He said it a million times how much he respects him, he loves him. Playing under him he was probably his favorite coach in terms of how he was treated by him. He commands the respect of everybody, players, directors, everybody. He's very versatile tactically. You can adapt your mercato accordingly the way you need to. He doesn't have a rigid way of playing. So that works. He's also a big, sexy name, and it would absolutely excite the Milan fan base. It would calm things down, and there would be much more patience with the project as well. The question, though, what does Carlo Ancelotti have to gain from going back to Milan? That has already been completed. He's won everything with Milan. There's nothing left to complete.
Lifestyle? Does he want to move back there, live his life there?
That could be it. But to me, it suggests that, my impression of Ancelotti is that he's a very ambitious person. He wants to still compete at the highest level. At Milan, he wouldn't be competing for the Champions League trophy. He could push for a Serie A title. Yes, I think he only won 1 Serie A title with Milan. So that, there is that. But, at this stage of his career, one Serie A title, does it matter if he wins another one? I mean, I don't think it does. I think, and this is the reason why, as much as I would love for him to go to Roma, I don't think he will.
Yeah, well, we'll come on to Roma in a minute. Whether it will be a good match with Milan, I think that the positives are he can handle big stars. So the whole problem that Milan have had in the dressing room that we saw, especially with Fonseca, to a lesser extent with Conte, although we have still seen problems, being able to handle these big personalities, these prima donnas, these individuals like Leao, like Theo Hernandez, like some of the others as well, that won't be a problem. He'll get the respect. He'll be able to handle the dressing room. That's important. Also, again, even though he failed this season, as we just said, with Mbappe and with Vinny and Bellingham, fitting that into a workable tactical system, he's the best coach in the world at fitting tactically impossible players into a team. And we've seen with Theo and Leao, and again, some of the others, it's just been something that Conceicão's failed, Fonseca failed. Even Pioli found it difficult, despite the Scudetto win. Again, if there's anyone that can do it, it's Ancelotti. Whether or not he can't do it, we'll have to see. So I think that's the positives. And also, he will attract big name players to Milan as well. Like, there's always that. So if they're in the transfer market, they want to sign someone, he's going to be an attraction for sure. But also, he does have his tactical limitations. And also, I think he's been a manager where he's been better with ready-made winning teams. Milan are not, even with these stars, are not a ready-made winning team. They need a lot of work. They need to bring in a lot of players. They've got a lot of holes there. And Ancelotti's not the best at constructing. I think we saw that at Napoli, maybe to an extent. We certainly saw it at Everton, where it's not a particularly good team. You're trying to build something. He's not the manager for that, because he's not tactically, he's not that kind of person. So pros and cons.
Well, yeah, but also equally, which is why, as much as I romantically would absolutely love him returning to Roma, I just don't see that happening. Because, yes. Okay. Well, you're answering the question now. I'll ask you. Ancelotti to Roma. Could he finally take over his beloved Roma? I think it would be beautiful for sentimental reasons. I think it would be absolutely gorgeous for him, the lost son returning home. And
he's always wanted to, though. He's always spoken about it throughout his career, early in his career. I want to manage Roma one day.
Yeah.
Well, here's your opportunity. Why not take that opportunity now?
And that's the thing, though, because if he were to win a trophy with Roma, that would be, iconic. It would.
Surely this is the time to go to Roma. At his age, again, we've said.
But then again, there is also the other side of it, and that is, if he were to take over Brazil and win the World Cup with Brazil,
yeah.
I mean that's
end of argument for greatest manager ever, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
depends what his ambitions are. Does he want to become the greatest manager of all time? If he does, he takes the Brazil job, doesn't he? If you win the World Cup,
win the World Cup, win the Coppa America. No, win the Coppa America, win the World Cup, dethrone Argentina from both.
Yeah,
that's it.
But then there's the Roma. There is the romantic angle. There is. This is a player who was a legendary player at Roma. Had an injury-prone career, but he was a fantastic midfielder. He was part of a Scudetto winning team. They got to the European Cup final, though he was injured. He didn't play. And then before he moved to Milan, and to go back there and to, maybe win a Scudetto. It'd be difficult, but with the state of the Serie A and as we've seen this season, the low points tallies, and it's not impossible. That would be on a personal level something. Is that something that he can resist? I don't know. What I can say is, from the Roma angle, as we've said, you've said it very well, that to be the manager of Roma, you have to understand the Roman environment, and Ranieri has, and that's why one of the big reasons why he's done so brilliantly since coming in this season. Ancelotti does and will understand the environment. He won't be, it won't get to him like it does so many other managers. For that reason, there's no risk there. Tactically, though, he doesn't play a back three, and I think this Roma system it's a back three squad. The squad is set up for a back three, with the exception of Soulé, who has started to work actually in this system recently. So again, it would need a lot of change in the squad and the players. And again, he's not a constructor. So yeah, I don't know. I would love to see him back in Serie A. Let me just end it that way.
Yeah, who wouldn't love to see him back in the Serie A, and from a romantic point of view, it would be absolutely brilliant. But equally, I think he's a very wise person. He knows that he looks at Roma, he sees where they are, he knows what he's good at. Can he do something with Roma? I'm not entirely sure that he can win a trophy with Roma, and finishing fourth, third with Roma is great for Roma, but I don't think it does much for
Who knows?
Ancelotti.
Europa League. I mean, he's a good in Europe. I mean, you never know.
Yeah,
but
he's a fantastic cup manager. There's no doubt about it. He's never won the Europa League, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, why not? But at the same time,
I think you're right. Yeah. Okay. Right. Let's move on. Right. We were going to talk about Sandro Tonali, but we're way over. We've actually got a related question on Tonali. So we will talk about Tonali Juventus in the Q&A episode, I promise. So just check out our Q&A for a discussion on whether Sandro Tonali to Juventus could actually happen. Because I've been speaking to some people about that, and there is a chance it could. So listen to our Q&A. If you're not a Patreon, you can sign up to be a Patreon for $3.99 a month, and you can listen to that segment. Rest of the weekend fixtures. So Lecce 0, Como 3, Asandia, another 2 goals. 18-16 since joining. What a signing, January signing.
and unbelievable, isn't he?
Yeah, brilliant. And Empoli 2, Venezia 2, which I know you would have loved.
Of course,
game.
I watched.
Crazy ending.
It was crazy. The way that it went on, and this, it was such an exciting game, and it all kind of came in the second half. All the goals towards the end when they were kind of panicking. And Empoli, like for me, there are 2 losers here. It's Empoli and Venezia. The big winner is Parma and Lecce, even though Lecce lost 3-0, because a winner in that game puts a lot of pressure on those above them. So Empoli Venezia was a very exciting game with no winners, and now we're going to the last 5 games, and then of course with the Pope's passing and games being postponed, it's really thrown a spanner in the works.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Coppa Italia midweek fixtures are on Wednesday, as it stands. Inter against Milan, 1-1 from the first leg. Inter are the designated home side for that. And Bologna against Empoli. Bologna are at home. They're 3-0 up from the first leg. So that's just a procession, really, into the final for them. Let's do a preview on Inter versus Milan. Even if this game doesn't happen this week, it's still relevant. The talking points are still going to be relevant. So let's still do a preview on this game. So as it stands, it's going to be on Wednesday at 2100 CET at San Siro. The current injury list is for Inter: Dumfries, Zielinski, both definitely out, and Thuram. Inzaghi said he definitely won't be fit for this game, but he should be fit for the coming weekend fixture against Roma. So if the game goes on Wednesday, Thuram won't play. And Milan are without Walker, Emerson Royale, and Ruben Loftus-Cheek. So that's the injuries. Now, the probable 11s, assuming the game does go ahead on Wednesday, Milan will play what Conceição deems to be their strongest team. So I would have predicted it as Magnon, Tomori, Gabbia, Pavlovic, Jimenez, Fofana, Reinders, Teo, Pulisic, Abraham, Leao. Now, that's what I was pretty confident it would be. But then because of this defeat and the poor performance, whether or not Thiaw might come in defence, possibly, whether or not there might be a change in midfield, it's hard to see how it can be improved. I do expect Abraham to start as the striker, though. That I will say. So that's Milan. They will play what Conceição deems to be the strongest team. Inter, though, Nima, if the game goes on Wednesday, what do you see the probable team is? What rotation will there be for this game?
I mean, it's difficult to say, but because I don't know how Inzaghi. I thought he was going to rotate against Bologna, not because he didn't care about Bologna, but because he had to rest, and now he didn't. Now he has to rotate against Milan. He can't keep playing these same players like this. And to me, that is, no Thuram. Okay. So Arnautovic, Taremi, can't start Correa again. Correa was dreadful. So it's going to be Lautaro, and it's going to be one of Taremi and Arnautovic. I'd say probably Arnautovic if he's fit. Then you look at the midfield. Mkhitaryan is suspended against Roma, so he will play, even though he shouldn't play. He's exhausted. It's going to be Çalhanoğlu, Barella. He doesn't have a choice as to who to play on the right wings. It's going to be Darmian again. I think Di Marco is definitely going to start. And then I think it's going to be Bastoni, De Vrij, and Pavard. So it's not going to be a lot of rotation.
Bastoni and Mkhitaryan will definitely start because they're suspended. Also, I actually think, coming back to what we said before, Inzaghi actually took off Bastoni and Mkhitaryan because he knew they were suspended and he had an eye on, right, I need to rest them for the midweek game because then they're not going to play on Saturday. I think that's a reason also why he took them off against Bologna, which you can criticise. You can understand because of you need to rotate, but you can also criticise because you can think, well, actually, especially Bastoni, because we know that Inter always concede when Bastoni comes off, whether that was a mistake. So yeah, the rotation, it has been a difficult one for Inzaghi, and it will play its part in this game as well. But if we look at kind of where the game will be won and lost, from Inter's point of view, first of all, the tiredness definitely comes into it. You know, this is an Inter team that does look very tired. How much intensity can they put into this game? Milan should be a little bit fresher, even if they also played on Sunday evening. I think that they will be fresher. They'll be a little bit more probably fired up for this game. But tactically, though, Nima, first of all, let's talk about from Milan's point of view, tactically. Do they stick with the 3-4-3? It's a difficult one for me because they've gone to this 3-4-3, which worked against Udinese, who didn't work against Atalanta. But having said that, though, against Inter, the formation that wasn't working against everybody else has worked really well against Inter this season. So, do you revert back to the old system and just ignore that probable team that I just said and go back to? Do you know what I mean? It's a tricky one.
You have to be pragmatic. If you're Milan, if you're Sergio Conceição, you know that you're leaving the club. You want 2 trophies. And so you throw everything out the window. You just get the result. And so you go with what's worked. And what has worked for Milan is the system he's played against Inter the last 2 games. You throw all that out the window. This is a cup game. It's a one-off game. You play deep, you counter-attack, and you've got Inter's number, so why change?
The problem is that Milan don't have a right-back. All their right backs are injured. So who do they play at right back if they go to a back four? It's part of the reason why they went there. So I mean, I guess is Jimenez available in the Coppa Italia? Maybe it will be him. Jimenez could probably play there. But yeah, I agree though with your point. I think that Milan should go back to the system that worked against Inter. The weekend is another matter, but I think they should go back to what they want, and then that leads us into Inter. How to Inter avoid falling into the Milan trap, because they've had their number this season, tactically.
It's Inzaghi can't just press and push forward. At this point, what I would do is I'd probably just say I'd do to Milan what Milan have done to Inter, and defend deep and basically take the same approach as you did in the Champions League against Milan. And say, hey, Milan, here's the ball. The problem is you don't have Marcus Thuram. You don't have you don't have Denzel Dumfries. You don't have anyone with space in the team to harm on the counter-attack. So I don't think Inzaghi will do that. I think he will continue doing what he's done so far. Whether or not it is good enough, and if Lautaro can finally break his duck, and if Taremi or Arnautovic can come good, is a different matter altogether. Because this is again a season where Inter are yet to beat Milan, and they've never won the Scudetto going through a season without having beaten Juve and Milan in the Serie A. So, that's also part of it. I just don't see Inzaghi changing. He can't. He doesn't have any speed in the team, so he can't play counter-attacking football.
Mm. Yeah,
you're going to counter-attack with Arnautovic? I mean,
yeah. And that's
you're going to counter-attack with Darmian? You're going to counter-attack with Di Marco?
No, I agree, and that's why I think that Inter need to try and control the game, because
they have to control the game. That's why he's going to do it. He has to do it. He doesn't have any speed. Every single player who has any speed is injured, and so he's going to have to control.
When's Dumfries going to be back? By the way, will he be back to the
they're
Barcelona
game? They're talking about Roma, but I don't. We'll see what happens.
So maybe Roma on the bench, and in Barcelona he can maybe start. Yeah. Okay. Predictions time then. I think also for the reasons that you said, I think this is going to be a draw, and it's going to go to extra time.
I think it's going to penalties, and Milan are winning on penalties. I think it's ending in a 0-0 draw and going to penalties because that's exactly what Inter need. So it doesn't go to extra time, doesn't it? Or does it go to extra time? I can't remember because they went directly to penalties in the quarterfinal.
That's a good point.
I can't remember.
It did go in the earlier rounds. It went directly to penalties.
Yeah, I'm not sure. But then again, this is the Lega Calcio. There's no logic. So they could be that they go to extra time.
I know for Inter it's the last thing you need, but I would love to see extra time. Like for but I don't want it to go straight to penalties. Put it that way. I want to see the drama of extra time in a Milan Derby semi-final. I think it would be fantastic. But it was I think it's going to be level after 90 minutes. Put it that way. That's what I think. I'm
just trying to look up quickly. I'm just
message Patrick Kendrick quickly. He knows all the rules.
Yeah. Let me see. They've removed the removal of extra time up to the semi-final and final. No. Here we go. The difference will be that extra time is scrapped for all those one-off games up to and including the quarterfinal. In the semi-final and the final, these fixtures will have extra time and then penalties. Fantastic. So no extra. There will be extra time. No, I think this is going to penalties, and I think Milan are winning on penalties. Inter can't win on penalties; they don't know how to do that. So I think it's going to be tight, and I think it's going to be really, really tight, and I think it's going all the way to the wire. And Inter once again going to be the masters of their own ruin by
if the game gets played this midweek, which
that is also
knowing the way that Italy works, wouldn't surprise me if they decide to call off the Wednesday game as well. Let's finish off with Baggio, Premface, and Serie ASS of the week. So Baggio, I have a few. First of all, Donnarumma, monster performance for PSG against Aston Villa. The only reason why PSG went through. I love Donnarumma in the Champions League in these knockouts, how he's shutting up all the haters. First of all against Liverpool and now against PSG as well. I also have Inter Ball Boy. I love that. I loved it so much against Bayern Munich when they're chasing the game, and you know why I love that? Because that's exactly what I would have done as a kid. Like I was just watching myself. Like that's exactly the kind of thing I would do. Just throw the ball away. It's the kind of thing Mourinho used to teach the ball boys. Like don't give it back to the opposition. I loved it.
Shithousery. You gotta love the shithousery. Wasn't it that one time when the ball boy got the ball really quick to Chelsea or there's the Spurs and they scored?
Mourinho, that was Mourinho. Yeah,
that's what I'm saying. And then Mourinho goes and hugs the kid.
Yeah,
or something.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it was a Mourinho. It was the kind of Mourinho kind of thing to do. Also, and the other Baggio, McTominay as well. Fantastic week. And also I want to say congratulations to Juventus women for winning the Serie A Femminile. They're the Serie A champions. And so Alicia Lehmann wins some silverware. So there is some silverware in Douglas Luiz's house.
Well, I mean, at least that transfer wasn't a complete disaster, right?
Yes, exactly. Who would have had it down as Lehmann being the success story of that transfer?
We can't go past Orsolini's goal either.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Unbelievable. Stunning goal. Absolutely fantastic goal.
Brilliant. Yeah. Premface. So we have...
I'm sorry, but the Europa League music being played at Villa Park ahead of the Champions League tie against PSG has me on the floor.
How is that even possible?
I just can't stop laughing at that.
It's so good. Their reactions to it as well. Do you know what it reminded me of? Do you remember in the Olympics? Was it 2012 Olympics when North Korea were playing? And they played the South Korea national anthem for the North Korea, or was it the other way around? I can't remember. That was so funny, so funny. Proper Premfacery that is up there. Playing, especially for the political reasons as well. You're playing North Korea national anthem for South Korea. Right. So who we got here? So Van Dijk was proclaimed as the greatest defender
again.
ever. when he signed his new contract by an Anfield rap journalist. That went viral on socials.
Again.
Okay, now this is something that's going to make all Italians very, very angry. So there's a big podcast in America called Official Flagrant, which I hadn't heard of, but I'm told is massive in America. They had a top New York chef on the show. Again, I hadn't heard of him. His name is Mario Carbone. So he's actually of Italian.
Mario Carbone.
Yeah, no, Carbone, not Carbone.
There's something about pronouncing Italian names in a Brooklyn or Bronx accent that I just absolutely
Carbone and Barone, Joe Barone.
Carbone.
So anyway, the podcast host and Carbone both agreed that New York Italian food is better than Italian food in Italy. Not only that they said that New York food beats the native food of any country in the world for that specific country.
That's insane. Like, I think that the best chefs in the world, they are in New York, they're in London, they're all in all of these big places where there's lots of money, these big financial centers. The best,
but the produce, the local produce, and the ingredients.
That's the thing. The local produce is what makes it, and I'm not quite sure that I know they have access to the best produce in the world in New York. Of course they do, but I don't think that
it's not the same.
I'm not.
I'm sorry, it's not.
Yeah, the San Marzano tomatoes that they grow in
tomatoes. You said it in American.
Yeah, of course. Tomatoes. We're talking about it's Mario. I'm inspired by Mario Carbone. But no, the San Marzano tomatoes that they got in Naples that are fresh there when they make their food there, of course, it's going to be better there. The flour, the water, all that stuff.
Fresh produce. You can't beat it. You can't beat it. It's an insane thing to say. It really is. And I would like to think if he's supposedly a top chef, he surely knows that. He's just saying.
I think what he's trying to say is that there are better chefs in New York than in any other city in the world, and I think that is no one would disagree with that. The best chefs in the world do work or have worked.
Well, where the best paid, where they're best paid. I understand that, but that's not what he said.
Yeah,
he said the food was better.
I think he misspoke. I don't think. That's.
I haven't watched the full podcast on the full discussion on it. I just saw like a 1 minute, 2 minute clip.
Yeah, I don't think that the New York
Italian... and they said it very proudly as well.
Yeah. I don't think the New York Italian food is better than the Italian food in Italy. No, I disagree with that. Okay, 100%.
Okay, final Premface, Robin Singh, who is a former India national team footballer. He's a pundit on Sony Sports Champions League coverage. Now, he claimed last week during the Inter Bayern Munich game that Inter have had a good season, but at best, they would only grab a Conference League place in the Premier League. He also called Simone Inzaghi overrated. So the Premface disease, the Premfacery, has spread to India.
It's gone aerial now. It's in the air. It's gone to India as well.
Where do you think Inter would finish in the Premier League, Nima?
Definitely top four. Whether they would win it or not, I think they'd throw their hat in the ring. But I mean, personally, I just think that every league. But
they're unproven. They're not Premier League tried and tested.
No, but I definitely think Inter, the way they play, would be in the top four. I think there's so many similarities between Arsenal and Inter that I think that's my litmus test. So that's the way I think they're on par with Arsenal, Inter. So that's why I have them there.
Yeah, agreed. Serie AS of the week, I have one. Do you have anything?
No, I can't say I have.
Okay, the linesman, or the assistant ref, as we call them nowadays, during Milan's game against Atalanta, there was an incident in the first half where Rafael Leao was put clean through on goal, right? He made his run, I'm not joking, about 3 yards inside the Milan half. He was clean through on goal. As it happened, Bellanova did some fantastic defending, and he managed to shows the pace of Bellanova. He actually caught
very
up
quick.
Leao, and he made the tackle, and he stopped the he stopped the goal. He basically stopped him from shooting, and it was a 1-on-1. But the referee blew straight after the tackle, as the tackle was being made, because the linesman put his flag up. He was 3 yards inside his own half. I mean, for me, that's one of the most shocking refereeing decisions. It didn't matter in the end. That's one of the most shocking refereeing or assistant refereeing decisions you're ever going to see. This is professional Serie A football. The linesman's putting his
VAR.
flag.
There's no need to do
But I mean, it's unbelievable. I mean, that's to make that kind of mistake, I remember when I was a player playing just Sunday league football when I was, I think, 15 years old, and we were playing for our team. And you know Arnie, you've met him, one of my best friends. So we used to play for his dad's team. His dad used to be the manager, and we were very kind of, half our team was Italian, and we had an Italian name as well. We were called US Valerio. And anyway, the referee didn't turn up for the game. And so Arnie's dad, who's this kind of very Italian, very passionate, loud kind of Italian guy, a lot of Italian stereotypes. And he became he was the referee. And so during the game, we were playing a kind of top of the table match. And one of their guys was put through 1-on-1 and scored, right? And he made his run. It was some shambolic defending by us. We were all in the opposition half for some reason. And their guy went clean through from his own half and scored. The linesman allowed it, and Arnie's dad, Pep, disallowed the goal himself as referee. The ball, and it reminded me of that. Like, they went absolutely ballistic. They wanted the game to be called off, and they were all kicked off, and it reminded me of that. But this is, we're talking about Bedford Sunday League here. For a linesman to put his flag up for that, I mean, I'm sorry, but I think he should be. I think he should be suspended for that. That's shocking. That's absolutely shocking. The linesman can't get away with that at this level of football.
I have a different Serie A, and it's just it's Milan and Inter who, they should know better. They're Italians. Okay, they should just know better. It's Easter. What is Easter? It's not about chocolate, eggs, and Easter bunnies. It's about the ascension of Christ to heaven. Okay? So why Inter and Milan I'm laughing because it's so tone deaf and stupid and own goal. Milan put out a happy Easter post with an an egg dressed in red and black with Satan's horns and a tail. And Inter, a snake, which is also a symbol of Satan, wrapping around an egg. It's just, just stop. Just wish happy Easter and keep I know you're called the Red Devils, and I know you're the Biscione. Just don't. It's just no. Just if you're gonna do an Easter thing, just do it. Do a generic Easter thing, and stay away. Just that one day, stay away from your clubs, because they have other connotations. And I just couldn't stop laughing because I know that they're Italians. I know that they didn't mean it like that, but it's just like, guys, please, just think one step further.
Was this on social media?
Yeah, on Twitter, yeah. And people were like, an egg with satanic horns, and and then the snake wrapping around the egg. It was just, no, stop it. It's that's what Easter is. This. I understand what you're trying to do, but just sometimes just stay away. Think one step further.
No, Italian team social media is not a good.
But it's like that. It's like that Juventus women post. I still can't believe that actually happened.
What happened?
Pretending to be Chinese.
Oh yeah, that was a couple of years ago, a few years ago, wasn't it? Yeah.
I still can't believe that was a real like that.
That's an Italian cultural thing. In Italy, it is common to make jokes about the Chinese with things like that.
No. I get that. But
I'm not saying it's acceptable, by the way. I'm just saying that
brand,
is
not as a brand. Like,
yeah, but this is we do these
like,
own goals all the time.
Please think. Use your heads. Like, just think just think one extra time. Like, I know that they didn't mean it like that, but still, it's Easter, it's the ascension of Christ. There's no need to put an egg with satanic horns on. Like, there's no need to have a snake wrapped around an egg. Like, it was the snake looked good. I mean, fair play to the designer. I got to say that the Milan post was not done by some, like, have you seen it? It looks like someone from like middle school. Like, it literally was last minute. It's just it wasn't, but regardless, just think one step further, guys, please. It's Easter. It's the most, if some would even argue that from a theological point of view, this is probably the most important mark in the Christian calendar, right? So don't just think one step further. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah,
I know that there was no intention. I know they meant it to do well and all that.
There often isn't intention, to be fair, with a lot of these things. Even when they racially abuse players and then claim that they're doing it not because they're racist, but because it's to put off the opponent. I genuinely believe that a lot of them that do that really aren't in their own minds racist, because they honestly would have no problems with the race that they're being racist to. That they just think, oh yeah, this is just sport in a sporting way. Like, I'm being serious. Like, they honestly, the intention even with that is not to be racist. It's just,
even though you're monkey chanting,
it's just it's just a cultural thing of not really getting it. Do you know what I mean? But anyway, let's leave it at that. Thank you everybody for listening. We have the Q&A as well come in, and then Nima is also going to do, if the game goes ahead, he's going to do a Milan versus Inter, or Inter versus Milan, Coppa Italia semi-final, second leg, post-match reaction on Wednesday evening. Thank you everyone for listening, and we will see you soon. Ciao, ciao.